My cousin stole my dog, and my family prevented me from getting him back, saying she deserved him more. Now that I've sued them and recovered my dog, my family wants me to forgive them and drop the lawsuit. My cousin has always been the family's favorite, and everyone knew it. We all had to avoid showing her our cool stuff because if she liked it, she'd throw a tantrum, and the family would pity her and give her what she wanted. It's worth noting that she is over 20 years old and has had this behavior since childhood, yet they still indulge her for this reason. Even though I've had my dog for over 3 years, I never showed him to my cousin and tried to keep her from knowing anything about him. I didn't think they would actually take my dog, but knowing her, I couldn't put anything past her. Well, recently I had to travel, and this time the dog daycare I used to go to was closed, and none of the others in the area had availability. So, much to my dismay, I had to leave him with my mom because it was an urgent work trip, and I really couldn't leave my dog alone. I took the trip, and before even setting foot in my house, I went straight to my mom's house to pick up my dog. I knew something was wrong the moment I walked in. When I arrived, my mom started changing the subject, but I kept asking about my dog until she finally told me. My cousin had come over a few days earlier, saw my dog, and fell in love with him. My mom tried to refuse, but she said my cousin was so sweet and seemed like she would take such good care of the dog that she couldn't deny her the gift. Of course, I was furious and said my dog was not a gift, and I wanted him back right now, or I'd go get him myself. That's when the general argument started. They said it would be cruel to take the dog away from my cousin since she had already grown attached to him. I said that if she got attached in a few days, imagine how I felt after 3 years, and that I didn't care how attached she was. My dog was mine, and I wanted him back now. The argument continued, with more family members getting involved, claiming that my cousin deserved the dog because she was such a sweet girl. When I realized that my mom and cousin had no intention of returning my dog, anger began to boil inside me. They sat there, looking at me like I was the crazy one, as if I was wrong for wanting my dog back. My dog, who I had raised since he was a puppy, who kept me company on lonely nights, who was my comfort during hard times. He wasn't a toy. He wasn't something you just give away because someone really liked him. My cousin, with her fake innocent expression, tried to play the emotional card. Please, you already have so much. It's just a dog. I promised to take great care of him. He's already so used to me. I looked at her in disbelief. Just a dog.
He's part of my family.
You've known him for what, 3 days? And you think that gives you the right to just take him from me? My mom, visibly uncomfortable with my indignation, tried to justify herself. Sweetheart, it's not like you can't get another dog. Your cousin really bonded with him, and you know how sensitive she is. I laughed bitterly. Oh, of course. Let's all keep tiptoeing around the sensitive ones because, God forbid, she doesn't get her way. I turned to my cousin. You're in your 20s, for God's sake. It's time to grow up and stop acting like a spoiled child. My cousin made a theatrical pout, but before she could say anything, I got straight to the point. This ends now. You have 2 options. Either you give me my dog right now, or I'll go to the police and report this as theft. And yes, I will do it. The silence in the room was heavy. My mom and cousin exchanged glances, as if hoping the other had a magical solution to this problem. My heart was racing. I hated resorting to threats, but they left me no choice. My mom finally broke the silence, her voice firmer than I expected. Don't be ridiculous. You're not involving the police over a dog. That's pure selfishness. Think about what this will do to the family. Do you really want to expose us like this? I scoffed, incredulous. Selfishness? Selfishness is what you're doing. You stole my dog, and now you're trying to convince me that I'm the one in the wrong for wanting him back. My cousin started to cry, a performance so exaggerated it was almost laughable. You don't understand how I feel. He's so perfect. He loves me. You can see it in the way he looks at me. You already have so much. Why can't you just let me have him? I stood there in silence for a moment, trying to gather my thoughts. I knew continuing to argue wasn't going to get me anywhere. They were stuck in this absurd idea that they had the right to decide what to do with my dog. So, I decided to change tactics. You think I'm bluffing?
Fine. Keep him for now.
But know this, from this moment on, I'm done asking. The next step will be a formal report to the authorities. I'll take this as far as it needs to go, and I don't care what you think. My mom tried to protest, but I raised my hand to stop her. Save it. You've already shown me you have zero respect for me. Now, I'll show you that I'm not someone you can just walk all over. I turned and walked out of the house, ignoring my cousin's indignant wails and my mom's pleas for me to be reasonable. As soon as I got to my car, I called a friend of mine who's a lawyer, someone who knows how to handle situations like this. He advised me to file a police report immediately and promised to help me with the legal process. On the way home, my phone started buzzing. Messages from family members who were clearly already hearing about the situation. You're overreacting. It's just a dog. Think about what you're doing to your cousin. You're going to ruin the family's peace. I deleted every single message without even reading them fully. Peace? They weren't concerned about peace when they stole something that belonged to me. When I got home, I sat on the couch and stared at the empty spot where my dog should have been. I felt a mix of anger and sadness. How could my own family do this to me? But at the same time, a sense of determination grew within me. I wasn't going to let this slide. Not this time. As I planned my next steps, a notification popped up on my phone. It was a message from an aunt, warning me that my cousin had posted pictures of my dog on social media, calling him my new love. The captions and comments were so audacious, it made my blood boil. This only solidified my decision. I was going to fight for my dog, no matter what it took. And this time, my family would see just how far I was willing to go for what was mine. I knew they wouldn't give up easily, but they also knew I was serious. It was only a matter of time before this situation escalated. And honestly, I was ready for it. After spending a sleepless night staring at the empty space where my dog should have been, I made my decision. I couldn't let my family manipulate me anymore, or allow this injustice to go unchecked simply because it involved family. My cousin had crossed a line, and my mother was just as guilty for enabling her. It was time to take action, and I knew exactly what to do. The next morning, I went straight to the police station to file a report. The officer who attended to me listened attentively as I explained everything: how I had left my dog with my mom during a work trip, how my cousin fell in love with him, and how my mom decided, without any right, to give him away as if he were a toy. I handed over photos of my dog, veterinary records, purchase receipts, and even old messages proving that he was mine. The officer seemed to understand the seriousness of the situation and assured me they would take the necessary steps. However, as I left the station, part of me still felt unsettled. Filing the report wasn't enough. My cousin and my family needed to understand that they couldn't just walk all over me without consequences. I pulled out my phone and began typing. I decided to expose everything on social media. I wrote a detailed post explaining the situation, leaving nothing out. How my mother had given my dog away without my consent, how my cousin had a long history of manipulating the family, and how they were now trying to paint me as the villain for wanting back what was rightfully mine. I included photos of my dog, screenshots of family messages attempting to guilt-trip me, and ended by stating that I had no choice but to take legal action. The reaction was immediate. Within hours, my post had hundreds of likes, comments, and shares. Friends, acquaintances, and even strangers voiced their support. Many shared similar stories of being wronged by family members. People were shocked by the audacity of my cousin and mother, and several tagged animal rights organizations. Some even suggested involving the local news to increase pressure. Unsurprisingly, my family didn't take long to respond. The messages started pouring in. My mom sent me a lengthy text full of, "How could you expose the family like this? And you know how sensitive your cousin is. This will destroy her." Aunts began calling me, insisting I was overreacting and that family issues should be resolved privately. One even threatened to cut ties with me if I didn't delete the post. But the worst was my cousin. She sent me a self-pitying yet arrogant message. "You're ridiculous for turning this into a public spectacle. I love your dog, and he's already part of my life now. If you had any empathy, you'd let me keep him." I didn't respond to any of them. By now, it was clear they only wanted to twist the narrative and make me back down. But what they didn't realize was that every attempt to silence me only strengthened my resolve. A few days later, I got a call from the officer handling the case. He informed me that they had spoken to my mother and cousin, making it clear that if the dog wasn't returned immediately, legal action would follow. My cousin tried to argue, saying the dog already felt at home with her, but the officer firmly reiterated that it didn't matter. The dog was mine, and I had all the proof to back it up. That same afternoon, my mother showed up at my house with my dog. The moment I saw him, I dropped to my knees and hugged him tightly. He seemed as happy to see me as I was to have him back. My mother, however, was visibly annoyed. "I hope you're happy now. You got what you wanted, but at what cost? Your cousin is devastated. You almost got her arrested over something so trivial." I stood up, still holding my dog, and looked her straight in the eyes. "Trivial? You think stealing a member of my family is trivial? You think exposing my dog to this stress, treating him like a toy to be given away, is trivial?" She shook her head, exasperated. "You're so selfish. You could have handled this without involving the police, without causing all this drama." I took a deep breath, trying to control my anger. "I tried to handle it. I asked, I argued, I pleaded, but you all ignored me, called me dramatic, and acted like my feelings didn't matter. You left me no choice. You caused this drama, not me." She left without saying another word, clearly fuming. Minutes later, my phone started buzzing again with more messages from family members. Some were supportive, but most accused me of being cold and tearing the family apart. One aunt even said I should be grateful I didn't press charges against my cousin and make her pay for what she did. Despite everything, I knew I had done the right thing. My dog was home, safe, where he belonged. And if my family couldn't understand that I had every right to fight for him, it only showed how warped their sense of priorities was. As I watched my dog peacefully sleeping on the couch, I thought about how this entire ordeal had changed my view of my family. I knew the wounds from this situation wouldn't heal anytime soon. And yet, I felt like this was only the beginning. After all, people like my cousin and my mother don't give up that easily. But this time, I was ready for whatever came next. Months have passed since the incident with my dog, and honestly, my life has never been the same. I stayed firm in my decision to cut off contact with everyone who tried to manipulate me or justify the theft of my dog. To them, time seems to have erased what happened, as if what they did was just a misunderstanding that should be forgotten. To me, however, it was a definitive break, a line that cannot be crossed again. My cousin continues to act as though nothing ever happened. Sometimes, I see posts of her on social media because other relatives tag me in photos or mention family events, and she's there, smiling, as if she hadn't tried to steal something so important to me. Apparently, she managed to convince everyone that it was just a misunderstanding and that my reaction was over the top. But I know exactly who she is, a selfish and manipulative person who has never faced real consequences for her actions. My mother tries to act like everything is normal. She still sends me messages occasionally, asking how I'm doing or saying she misses me. I reply politely, but without depth. There's no way to forget what she did, how she completely disregarded my feelings and allowed my cousin to take my dog, as if he meant nothing. To her, this seems like a solved problem, something in the past. To me, it's a constant reminder that she chose the wrong side. Other family members have also tried to reach out, especially during holidays or special occasions. I've received invitations to birthdays, weddings, and even a Christmas dinner. I declined them all. Most of these people actively participated in trying to convince me to give up on my dog or blamed me for overreacting by involving the police. These same relatives now act as if nothing happened, as if they can simply resume contact without even apologizing. But I'm not someone who forgets easily, especially when my trust has been so deeply betrayed. And me? I'm doing better. My dog is with me, healthy and happy, and that's what matters most. Since deciding to cut ties with those people, my life has been much more peaceful. I no longer have to deal with passive-aggressive messages, emotional blackmail, or pleas to let it go for the sake of the family. My circle is now small, filled with people who truly respect my boundaries and values. It was hard at first. Part of me felt guilty for cutting ties with my own family, but I realized that blood ties mean nothing without respect. If my own mother and relatives could justify something so wrong, what else would they be willing to ignore or rationalize? I couldn't continue to surround myself with people who constantly devalued my feelings and rights. Sometimes, I feel a twinge of sadness for what I've lost. Not for them, but for the idea of a united family, something I always wanted but never truly had. Coming to terms with the fact that it never really existed was painful, but also liberating. Now, I no longer live under the illusion that I must tolerate everything for the sake of family harmony. I've learned to put myself first and prioritize my own peace. My cousin, my mother, and the rest of my family can keep pretending like nothing ever happened. They can live their lives however they want, but I've chosen to live mine far away from them. Occasionally, they still try to reach out with messages or calls, but I rarely respond. When I do, it's brief, polite, and distant. There's no more room for them in my life. In the end, I realized that losing contact with them wasn't really a loss. It was a gain. I gained freedom, I gained peace, and, above all, I gained the certainty that I did the right thing. They chose to act as if nothing happened, and I chose never to tolerate it again. Today, my dog and I live in peace. He remains my loyal companion, and every time I see him sleeping peacefully on the couch or joyfully running at the park, I'm reminded why it was worth fighting for. And he is the only family that truly matters to me.